Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi everyone. Today our group gonna present about hypothesis testing for mathematics for data science. My name is Alia Kaunisa binti Muhammad Zahid. So first we're gonna go to the introduction. In statistics, making conclusion about large population based on small sample is very common. To ensure this conclusion are reliable, two important methods are used: hypothesis testing and confidence interval. For question number 1, a technology company wants to know if there are differences in productivity of employees working from home versus those who working in office. The mean productivity score for 45 employees working from home is 85 with standard deviation of 10, while the mean for 15 employees working in the office is 18 with standard deviation of 12. Use a hypothesis test to determine if there are significant difference in productivity at a 0.05 significant level. So next is the solution. Step number 1, collect the data. Find the mean, standard deviation and sample size from the statement. Step number 2, determine the tails and state the hypothesis. Find if it left tail, right tail or two tails, and state the hypothesis of null hypothesis H0 and alternative hypothesis H1 or HA. So we go to step number 3. Find which one is to use, Z-test or T-test. If total sample is more than 13, use Z-test table. Otherwise, if the sample less than or equal to 13, use T-test table. For step number 4, now use the formula to find ZC. So next is the solution. Step number 1, collect the data. Find the mean, standard deviation and sample size from the statement. Step number 2, determine the tails and state the hypothesis. Find if it left tail, right tail or two tails, and state the hypothesis of null hypothesis H0 and alternative hypothesis H1 or HA. So we go to step number 3. Find which one is to use, Z-test or T-test. If total sample is more than 13, use Z-test table. Otherwise, if the sample less than or equal to 13, use T-test table. For step number 4, now use the formula to find ZC. Step number 5, calculate the ZC and find the significant level. If it is two tails, the significant level must be divided by 2. For step number 6, compare the result. Do we reject or accept the hypothesis? Lastly, step number 7, write the statement. That's all for our group. Thank you very much. For step number 6, compare the result. Do we reject or accept the hypothesis? Lastly, step number 7, write the statement.
For the question 2, based on the sentence and based on the question, we should find two sample, two standard deviation, and two mean with one alpha. So here the answer for the sample 1, sample 2, standard deviation 1, standard deviation 2, mean 1, mean 2, and alpha. For step 1, we should determine the tail, which is have two tail or one tail. So for this question, we have two tail based on the question. Means the graph will be have negative and positive value. And for step 2, find value of t-test, which is just using a formula to find the t-test answer. We use the t-test because the sample below 30. If the sample above 30, we use Z. Step 1. Step 3. Find alpha and TF, then create graph. For the first one, we should find alpha first. So why we divide 2 by 2 is because it's two tail. If one tail, we shouldn't divide by 2. And to find df, just use the formula that given here. So after we find the value of alpha and df, use table t-test to find the value to put in the graph. And here the graph. For the step mice using the t-test table to get the value of each both side, negative and positive. Since it was two-tailed, so it's positive and negative. Then the red line is the value of t-test value, and the blue one is the value of alpha and df using the table. Step 3. So for the last step, accept or reject. Step 4. Just determine whether test value fall in non-critical region or fall in critical region. How we want to know? Refer to the graph. If the red one inside the blue one, so it means it's fall in critical region. But if the red line is outside the blue one, so it means it's fall in non-critical region. It's fall in non-critical region, so it accept HO. But is if the red line is outside the critical region, it means reject HO at alpha significant level. And step 5, just wrote it back what step 1 have. So okay, for question 3, like usual, we should find sample, standard deviation, mean, and alpha. Based on the question, it's provide two sample, two standard deviation, two mean, and one alpha. So here the answer for the question 3. N1 is 35, N2 is 40. For mean 1 is 78, mean 2 is 82. For standard deviation 1, 6, standard deviation 2, 7, and alpha is 0.05. Okay. Okay, for step 1, we should determine the tail. So what is the tail? The tail is two tail because it's from the question. It has two tail. And for the step 2, we should find value of z-test because the sample is above 30. So we just using the formula to find z-test. Okay, for the step 3, find alpha and create graph. Why we don't find df value? Because it's z-test. Z-test doesn't have df. So we just using the formula given and also just find alpha. So why we divide 2? It because the same it's because based on the question from the step 1, we have two tail. So we should divide by 2. So we got 0.025 and just use the table. Use the table z-test. And we got negative and positive is because two tail. So just create the graph. Refer the z-test table to find the value of alpha for the graph. Just like question 2, the red line is a z-test value and the blue one is alpha value. For step 4 and 5, we just to know the value accept or reject. If the from the graph we just made, red line is a z-test value and the blue one is alpha one. So if z-test value fall in the blue one, so it's mean it fall in critical region. But if z-test value is outside the blue one, so it's mean it's fall in non-critical region. If non-critical region, we accept, but if fall in critical region, we reject at alpha significant level. And for step 5, just wrote it back. Wrote what step 1 have. For step 4 and 5,
For the solution, step 1 is set up a null and alternative hypothesis.
like I will state in the slide, which is H0 is equal to mu equal to 0 and H1 is mu are more than 0. Since the equation is mentioned, determine if the program significantly improve strength level. So we can conclude that the H0 is mu equal to 0 and H1 is mu are more than 0. For step 2, we need to calculate the required info. In these cases, we need to calculate the differences. From the table given, we need to find the D value. Let's move to the step 3, test statistic, which is we need to refer to the T table to find the value. With the equation given, we can find the T value. But before proceed to test statistic, we need to find the D and standard deviation first. So next, how to find D? We can find D with the formula of how to calculate the mean. It's just we need to put all these values and divide by the number of sample, which is 10. After we put the D value and divide by 10, we can find the value of D is 3.7. Next, we need to find the standard deviation first before we can proceed to the test statistic. Is it same standard deviation? We can use the formula before we learn this chapter, like chapter 1. After use the formula, we can find the value of standard deviation in this question is equal to 1.16. Next, we can move to step 4, which is compare and decide whether to accept or reject the H0. As the given in this question, the alpha value is 0.05 and the D is equal to n minus 1. Because we use the T table, we need to do the D equal to n minus 1. So it's equal to 9. The T value on the table is 1.833. Hence, the T test value falls on critical region. So, we reject the H0 because the T test value is 10.09. So it's clearly falls on critical region. So that's all.